My fiance likes cuddling with their stuffed animals more than me. Throwaway for obvious reasons. This is going to seem strange, but please read because I really do need some advice on this. I've been with my fiance for 3.5 years and we'll be getting married in the next few months. We honestly have never had any issues worth mentioning until last September when we took a trip to a sci-fi/fantasy convention and ended up coming back with a gigantic, think large, beach ball sized T'Chula plushie. Chulu. At first, we thought it was funny and cute. We even named it Kevin, if you're curious, and made up a funny voice that it would use. Over the course of the next few weeks, however, they began to take it all much further. They started to come up with a backstory for it. They would hide it throughout the apartment to try to freak me out. Over time, they really started to refer to it in a way that you'd talk about your pet or something, even to the point of scolding it for various mischief that they'd accuse it of. They've now started to do the same with other gigantic stuffed animals. A manatee named Horace, a duck named Anthony. Initially, I thought this was just some silliness, but I'm worried that they're taking it too far. I've mentioned in passing many times how strange it is that we are treating stuffed animals like people, but I'm only met with silence, followed by insistence that, quote, they are little people. A couple of weeks ago, this all came to a head when I've started to have nightmares about these things. The most vivid one involved the T'Chula taking over people's minds and forcing them to paint their worst fears. I woke up in a cold sweat, and I was so confused that I actually Googled the doll to make sure that there wasn't anything weird about it. Anyways, I told them about it, again in the context of how dumb it all was, and they got mad that I would accuse Kevin of doing such a thing. I think that they actually got mad enough that they're shutting me out. When they lie down on the couch for a nap, they grab the doll, but push me away when I try to lie down with them. Things are fine when we're out and about, but when we come home, they're always going back to that damn doll. I've thought about throwing it away, but I honestly don't think they'd ever forgive me. I just wish that they could see what this damn thing is doing to us when we're at home together. Does anyone have any ideas of what to do?
About 2 summers ago, my best friend and I got so bored, so we decided to do a dating competition. Basically, whoever can get the most amount of dates during that one summer was the winner, and the loser had to do a dare. I went on over 40 dates. So I did win. However, during those dates, so many things have happened, and this is one of those dates that have just stuck in my mind. This was a 26-year-old man that lived about a 5-minute drive from me. I literally thought it was destined to be because when I got in his car, in the first 10 minutes of talking to each other, we realized we had so much in common. We both used to live in Japan and used to live in certain parts of the world, spoke the same languages, come from the same culture, and it was crazy. And I was like, this is my person. At the time, I hadn't done anything with the guy. Like, I was super innocent. But we would continue to hang out within the next month or two, and we started to get pretty close. Too close, because then he told me that he was moving all the way to downtown. After he told me that, I did not want him to leave because if he left, I felt like he was gonna forget about me. I was so crazy and I was literally asking the universe for signs. In fact, one day I literally asked the universe to show me a yellow circle if we were meant to be. Tell me why when I was literally working and I was walking to the classroom, I saw a yellow circle on the floor, and he had ghosted me for a week that week, and he literally texted me right after I saw that circle, and I was like, we are meant to be. However, I still thought that he was going to leave me if he were to move downtown. So the day before he literally moves, he tells me to come over at 4 in the morning. I come from super strict parents, so I had to tell him that I was at work. I went over there, and tell me why we're just laying on the bed. I'm thinking to myself, he definitely wants to get a little bit freaky. This dude starts to initiate stuff, okay? Tell me why. After the deed is done, he quite literally looks at me and he says, you and I are bonded for life now. I was not ready for what was going to happen next. He moves downtown and he ghosted me for the next month or two. I was so devastated. And after that, I see that my TikTok page has gotten deleted. I fully convinced myself that I did a sin and that's why my page got deleted. After doing a confession, my page finally came back, and tell me why the man reached back out to me. After we rekindled and talked about what was happening between us two, he told me that he had to break things off with me because I didn't talk about our relationship on this platform. He said that after he said that you and I are bonded for life now comment, that he would get recognition on this platform and I would make a story time about him. And when I didn't do that, this guy literally went and spammed my page to where it would get deleted. But that wasn't the end of our story. Unfortunately, we kept seeing each other.
Story time of when I realized that the way I grew up was not normal. I want to preface this by saying that I no longer blame my mother for the way I grew up. A lot of therapy has gone into me the past 3 years. And I've realized that the way I grew up, my mother was just using the tools that she had to raise me like she was raised. And unfortunately, she had a very abusive past, just like I did. I grew up in a very chaotic household. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of cursing, a lot of hitting, a lot of spitting, dishes thrown, and mental abuse. So much mental and emotional abuse. There were times in high school that I would gather my things and my dog, and go stay with my best friend and her family. I didn't think I was gonna cry. So that I could avoid the line of fire at my house. Not to mention the boys I dated growing up had a lot of childhood trauma as well. One of my boyfriends and me kind of grew up together, traumatizing each other because that's what we knew. When me and my long-term boyfriend broke up, I met my now husband. And when I finally met his family, I was like, the jig is up. Where's the cameras? Where's Ashton? I don't believe any of this shit for a second. His parents weren't screaming at each other in front of company. They didn't seem to scream at each other ever. His dad seemed like he'd never heard a fly. I was like, false. And my husband could not understand the way I fought for the longest time. And by the way, I used to throw shit like DVD players and break them. Until the first holiday he spent at my house with my family. When one of my family members lost their cool and screamed at the top of their lungs for everyone to get out of the kitchen, my husband, my now husband, boyfriend then, was stunned. He was too stunned to speak. And I'll never forget that ride home. He was quiet for a while, and finally he said, I get it now. I'm like, you get what? He's like, I get why you scream and why you throw shit when you argue with me. I'm like, boy, I've been trying to tell you this whole damn time. Because if you didn't know, we're typically products of our environment. From that point on, I definitely had to work a lot on my anger management, but my husband gave me a little bit of grace. And I started to see more and more whenever I would visit his family that there is such thing as a calm environment for your family. His siblings didn't live in fight or flight like mine did. His father loved his kids. I even remember the first time I saw him loving on his daughters, I was like, my husband's side of the family has a lot of children in it. He has 5 siblings. He's one of 5. And then also there's like 14, 15 nieces and nephews. And you can imagine that holidays are kind of chaotic. So my first holiday there, I was expecting a lot of screaming from my mother-in-law and my father-in-law because we cannot handle this type of screaming and running around in this house, right? At least that's what I thought. And no. Again, they proved me wrong that they are the most patient people I've ever met in my life, and that screaming in your house, especially in front of people, especially at children, is not supposed to be normal. Now, no family is perfect by any means, but his family is pretty damn close. And after being around his family now for a decade, I can truthfully say that growing up in a house full of screaming, dish throwing, hitting, spitting, and emotional and mental trauma is not normal. And this is the part of the video where I encourage you to look into therapy. Even if none of the above was done to you in your childhood or your past. Therapy literally saved my life. I truly feel it's important to spread these little tidbits of knowledge because you never know what someone's going through or what they've been through. And I love when I connect with you guys on a deep level where you feel like you're not alone. And the first time I started posting about this on my old platform, I realized how many adults suffered the way I did as a child and have no outlet. I want you to know that there is good in the world, that your past does not determine who you are, that you can change your past if you want, and you can also break generational cycles if you work really hard.
Okay, so this is going to be the story time of how this guy named Matthew did something to me on my wedding day. And I'm going to try and keep it brief and succinct, but to be completely honest, there's a lot of backstory and a lot of details, so it's probably going to be multiple parts, but I'm going to just do it all at once. Alright, so what had happened was, my fiance at the time, now husband, and myself moved to Colorado Springs back in 2017 because I got a job at a nonprofit in Colorado. I don't want to name the company because the people that are working there now are a completely different group of people than who was there when I started out, and so I'm not going to bash their name, but my direct boss at the time was a man named Matthew. Then there was a man named Paul who was directly above him, and then Joe was the CEO of this company. They all play a part in this story. So because my husband and I weren't yet married, we decided it would be best if I moved in with 2 other women working at this company, and my fiance got an apartment of his own. Alright, so I'm living in a house with 2 other women, and my fiance has his own apartment like 10 minutes down the road. I had moved out of my parents' home into this new house in Colorado Springs. So, needless to say, I was not in a great financial space. I was sleeping in a sleeping bag in my room in this house. I had no furniture. All of my clothes were just folded in piles on the floor. Like, you know, classic. Whereas my fiance had a full-ass apartment that was very nice, and he had food. So I would spend a lot of my time in his apartment, obviously. Like 2 20-somethings in a relationship about to be married, I was spending a lot of nights in his apartment as well. Mostly because he owned a bed. Now, Joe, the CEO of this company that I was working for, didn't love how much time I was spending with my fiance. Everybody in this company was a very conservative Christian human being. I myself am a Christian, but they were extreme. One day, Joe pulled me into his office to ask me what our plans are regarding marriage. And this is where it gets interesting, all right? Joe starts asking me about our wedding plans, and I just tell him straight up that because we don't have any family in Colorado and we don't want to stay engaged too long, we were probably just going to do a courthouse wedding. And Joe straight up tells me that because we would not be getting married in a church with a pastor, that our marriage wouldn't be considered legitimate by God or him. Okay. So at this point, I just decided I'm done discussing wedding plans with anybody in this office because clearly they have some views. My fiance and I had already discussed our plans with both of our families and they were cool with it. We decided to get married the next week. Like, why wait any longer? And we wanted to live together. So we were planning to go to the courthouse and get married on a Saturday. So like the Wednesday or Tuesday before that Saturday, my fiance and I decided to take all of my stuff out of the house that I was currently living in. It was like 2 boxes and just move it into his apartment. My lease was ending like the next day, so it just made sense for me to move out at that point. Well, my boss, Matthew, found out about this, and he was pissed. I'm sorry this is long and drawn out, but there's a lot going on. We're getting to the good part. So Friday, March 31st, 2017 marked 30 days since I had begun working for this company. So my boss, Matthew, pulls me into his office along with Paul, his boss, to do what they said was going to be a 30-day review. Made sense to me. Yeah, I saw nothing of it. So I walked into that office, closed the door behind me, and then Paul locked the door, which felt strange, but there was also a company meeting going on right outside, so I thought maybe they just don't want anyone to barge in here. I should have taken that as the very first red flag. I'm starting to get shaky. They told me they had learned some information about me that was potentially compromising to my position at the company. Ladies, record every conversation and meeting you have with your superiors at work, because these men asked me how many times my fiance and I had had sex. They asked me if I felt guilty and if my father knew. At this point, I panicked and told them I was married. So in a locked room, 2 50-year-old men who were also my superiors at work asked me how many times my fiance and I had had sex, if our parents knew about it, and if we felt guilty. Like I said, at this point, I panicked, wanted to get out of that room as fast as I possibly could, and just lied and said that we were already married, so it didn't matter. When they asked why I hadn't said anything about getting married, I told them it was because Joe, the CEO, had told me that he was very disapproving of our courthouse marriage idea, so I didn't want any backlash from anyone at work. Mind you, my fiance and I were planning on getting married the next day regardless. So they asked me to bring in a marriage certificate on Monday, and I told them that wouldn't be a problem. I was way too shaken up to explain myself any further, and I said I'm going to explain the entire situation and tell them the whole truth on Monday. I should have quit right there. They asked me several more questions related to our sex life, including when did our sexual interactions begin. This is where I ran out of the room in tears, called my fiance, and he was able to calm me down and be like, we're getting married tomorrow. This is all going to be okay. Part 6. I'm sorry. Part 6 of what a man named Matthew did to me on my wedding day. I'm trying to keep this brief. I'm going to power through, but there's a lot here. I'm sorry this is so long. I'm going to post all of the parts at once. Matthew leaves early for the day. I decided it would probably be a good idea if I just come out and tell the truth now, but he left early. He wasn't answering my phone calls and I didn't have a choice. Saturday morning rolls around. My fiance and I get ready. We go to the courthouse. We sign the documents. Yay, we're married. That's at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I get a call from Matthew at 10:30 or 11. I pick up and I go, hey, Matthew. He says, hi, Jordan. Did you just get married? And I say, yes, I did, but I can explain. And before I can finish, he cuts me off and goes, yeah, you're fired. He said, you lied to me. You said you were married and you just got married now. You can't lie to me. You're fired. Come clean out your desk tomorrow, Sunday morning, and you're done. I say, Matthew, you locked me in your office and asked me how many times I had sex. You can't do that. And this man says, yes, I can. You're done, and hangs up the phone. I actually called Matthew back because I'm like 20 years old and I'm desperate to keep this one job and connection that I have in a brand new state. Shouldn't have done that. Matthew tells me that he's consulted with the entire board of directors and everybody agrees that I deserve to be fired. I'm crying and trying to explain everything that just happened on the phone to my now husband when my dad calls me and is like, hey, congratulations on getting married. And I'm like, oh yeah, wait till you hear this. Anyway, Sunday morning comes around and I'm like, I'm not done. I'm going to defend myself. I walk into the office and Matthew is there along with 2 other board members. Matthew briefly greets me and then leaves. Doesn't even give me a chance to confront him. And the 2 board members escort me back to my desk to clean it out. And I look at them and I say, did Matthew tell you I got married yesterday when you all chose to fire me? And they, very confused, look at me and go, no, he didn't. And I say, okay, pro tip, don't sexually harass and then fire your employees on their wedding day. So now every year my anniversary comes with a dash of PTSD.
Am I wrong for kicking my mom out of my dad's old house after finding out what she's been telling my wife? I, 33 male, am beyond angry about this. Some of my siblings are telling me it was an overreaction while also mad at what she did. I'd really like some thoughts about this because the house seems divided. My wife Cara and I were friends for 3 years. She was in a very toxic and abusive relationship for 3 years until she had begged us, me and our closest friends, to help her get out. It was difficult, but we made it possible. We all pitched in for her to stay as far as possible while she got a restraining order and all of that jazz. We each took turns going to visit, and then she found out she was pregnant, so I helped out more. Her ex passed from an overdose when my stepson, 7 male, was 4 months old. So since then, we all became sort of like uncles and aunts to him. Around that time, I knew I developed feelings for her, but we never ever did anything because she had her son and personal issues to process. It didn't feel right at the time. But yes, we did start a relationship 3 years later. She's the one who first admitted she's in love with me, so things went from there. We just got married. She's 5 months pregnant with our second child. I will say that yeah, my mom had issues at the start of our relationship because she believed Cara was faking what happened to her just to make me feel sorry for her and take care of them. We went through a period of not talking until she apologized, so we mended things somewhat. My mom came to stay at our house, which was my dad's house, until he decided to give ownership to me when they moved. He passed away 10 months ago, and with the economy, my mom couldn't stay where they were living before. We are still trying to work out where she can live long term. I heard my mom get into an argument with my wife because she was trying to redecorate the nursery against Cara's wishes. All I heard was my mom telling her that she's not the lady of the house just because her fake victim sob story worked on me. She looked flustered when I demanded her to tell me what that meant. And basically she held on to the same belief, but she was willing to put up with my choices on who I marry so she doesn't lose me. Everything she had to say infuriated me. And then seeing how upset Cara was by everything, I called my brother to come pick my mom up because she can't stay here right now. My mom wouldn't stop crying not to do this to her just for being honest. She's still at my brother's, but they keep trying to talk to me to let her come back because this was my dad's house, and of course she wants to feel closer to him. But after asking Cara if this is the first time she said anything, she revealed my mom has told her numerous times what she thinks of her and kept it from me because she knew it would hurt our relationship. For that reason, I haven't let my mom come back. It's hard because I know what this house means to her and that she's still sad about my dad, but also can't forgive her for upsetting my wife. So, am I the asshole?
I'm gonna try to get all this in without having to do a part 2, but you guys hang in there because this one hell of a story. So about a week ago, I was walking through my living room and I look on the floor and I see this really old picture. It's a picture of my grandmother from like 1940. And I know it sounds weird, but sometimes she just has a way of making her presence known. So I was just like, okay, hey, what's up, Grandma? Put the picture back and went on with my day, went on with my business. Now written at the bottom of the picture though was the word Elliot with 1 T. I'd never seen that before. I have no idea where that was or who that was. But later I was hanging out with one of my friends and I asked her, I'm like, hey, do you know if anywhere, like any place in South Carolina that's got that name spelled that way? And one of the beaches that I clean is spelled like that, but that was highly unlikely. And we just kind of chatted about it and then blew it off. So later on that night, I'm just hanging out, talking on the phone with my husband, chilling. And all of a sudden, I just get this weird idea to go outside and look at my car. I have a new car, new to me. I just got it. And my cat has decided to sleep on top of my car, which is not cool because when she slides off, she scratches the paint. Not cool. I tell her to get off. She's not listening, so I grab the water hose. And the idea is wet the car, make it uncomfortable so the cats won't want to be up there. Cool, right? All of a sudden, I hear somebody scream. I can't tell what they scream, but I hear a scream, and it's 10 o'clock at night. Some of my neighbors are a little bit ghetto. Sometimes they just take a notion to start screaming and hollering at each other, so I didn't really blow it off, but it kind of blew it off. And then my phone goes off and I get a message from my friend, and all it says is, my house on fire. I drop the water hose, walk to the edge of the yard, and absolutely see flames, like the whole sky is orange. My friend's house is on fire. I go running down there, I get off the phone with my husband, and I'm screaming to see if she's okay. And I see a car just sitting on the side of the road. And this woman is just sitting there and she looks kind of shocked. And I ask her, I'm like, are you okay? Did you see what happened? And she goes, yeah, I was just getting ready to leave my house. And I looked over there and I saw that the lights were all out and their car was on fire. The screaming I heard was her running around banging on their windows saying, get up, get up, get up, your house is on fire. So at the very moment I was spraying my car down with water, my friend's car burst into flames. The person who just happened to be leaving their house to knock on their windows and save their lives, she's the niece of the woman who used to live in that house. And what was her name? Miss Elliot.
Am I wrong for refusing to move in with my boyfriend and friend who can't afford the new place without me? I, 25 female, moved in with my boyfriend, 30 male, to help out with him financially. He got stuck outside of his home country and I was well established. 1 month, he asked me to help with the bills, and I did. The next month, I proposed to move in together since I couldn't afford to cover my bills and part of his. He didn't want to leave his friend, 32 male, with whom he shared an apartment, so I agreed to move in with them. Anyways, I moved to the smaller room without an ensuite bathroom with my boyfriend, and the friend was in the bigger one with the bathroom inside. At first, I thought my boyfriend and I would be sharing bills in half, so we both paid half of the rent. His friend paid the other half, and electricity and water 3 ways. However, the friend asked if I could pay a third of the rent. I didn't know if it was standard, but neither of them were working and it wasn't a burden for me. It was about the same as I was paying for my own apartment before, so I agreed. I did state that once the rent period at the apartment was up, we would move so my boyfriend and I could have a bigger room with the bathroom inside. They both agreed, yeah. Once the rent was up, they started looking for apartments. We found a house we liked, but it struck me as odd, as the house, although bigger, also had 1 room with ensuite and 1 bathroom outside. I thought, oh, the friend will take the smaller room this time. As you can guess, the friend refused to take the smaller room. I asked my boyfriend about it, and he said, oh, I don't know, let me ask. Well, the friend lost it, saying he wasn't going to take a smaller room. There was no way he was going to share his bathroom with guests and that it was just not happening. I pointed out our previous agreement. We had lived in the smaller room, 2 people, and that if switching for fairness wasn't enough reason, we paid for a more uncomfortable space, 2/3 of the rent. Lastly, the guest, friends of my boyfriend and friend, tended to pee on the toilet seat where I'm supposed to sit, and that's unhygienic and disgusting. I don't want to come back from work to have to clean up the mess of someone who doesn't know how to aim. The friend then started gaslighting me and being rude. I then said that I wasn't moving in with them, for not only the attitude to address the situation, but also the disregard for the financial help I was providing and concerns. Then he called me an asshole because he had already paid the deposit and signed the contract, without informing me that they were stuck in a place they couldn't afford. So, is this some sort of American standard? No matter the space you get, you pay rent equally? Am I the asshole for refusing to move in with them? And after I said yes, causing them not to be able to afford a new place?
I found multiple roaches in my bubble tea that I ordered from a sushi restaurant last night. This is why I'm upset with DoorDash. Just to bring you guys up to speed, if you haven't watched my other videos, but last night I ordered from one of my favorite sushi restaurants. I was starving, so I ordered a bunch of stuff, including 2 rolls, edamame, miso soup, and a matcha bubble tea. But it wasn't until I finished almost my entire meal and more than half of my bubble tea that I realized that there was a cockroach in my drink. I got a few comments like, why did you drink so much of it? Because I didn't see it. It could have been in the matcha that was settling at the bottom or in an ice cube that melted, but once the ice did start to melt, the roach floated to the top, and that's how I was able to see it. Immediately I started choking and gagging, and I felt lightheaded, sweating. If you saw how big this roach was in real life, you would do the same. I called my mom, she calmed me down, and then immediately I called DoorDash. After arguing with a bot for around 15 minutes, I finally got through to a real person that gave me 2 options, either a refund or to escalate the situation, and I chose to escalate so this doesn't happen to anybody else.
After waiting on hold for a little bit, I was transferred to the escalation department that again just offered me the refund, nothing more. There was no compassion, there was no reassurance that this wouldn't happen again. Just to ease my mind, they just offered me a refund and basically shooed me off the phone. And no, I'm not expecting them to file a lawsuit or lose their ever-loving shit over the situation. That's not what I'm saying. But DoorDash does have the power to revoke a restaurant's access to the app and or reduce their visibility. I'm not saying that would happen this time, but I wanted there to be a note in case more people called in, and I'm sure they will. This place has a clear infestation. And I say infestation because when I finally dumped out my matcha this morning, because I was too sick to do it last night, I found another roach. I did some investigating, and DoorDash actually takes a commission from each order that's placed through DoorDash. So these restaurants are paying DoorDash essentially to use the app and their tablet. And at this point, you're probably like, well, why is it DoorDash's fault? The cup was sealed. DoorDash is just the middleman. It's the restaurant's fault, which it is. But DoorDash has labeled this restaurant a top-rated restaurant, which means that this restaurant is pushed to the top of your search. And to be honest, I wouldn't even have known about this restaurant if DoorDash didn't promote it. That's like me as an influencer promoting a product that caused you to lose your hair. Of course, you'd be mad at the hair company and you would hit them up, as I have DoorDash, the restaurant, and will be calling the health department on Monday, but you would lose all trust in me. So no, it wouldn't be directly my fault. Like, I didn't cause you to lose your hair, but I endorsed a product that did. As a matter of fact, one time many years ago, I was promoting false lashes and the company was not shipping them out to my followers. And I was pissed. I could not help but feel partially responsible because even though I got my lashes without problem, the people that trusted me, in my opinion, did not. So much so that I bypassed my own agency and contacted the company myself to make sure that every person got their lashes. And I'm just one person. DoorDash is I don't even know, multi-billion-dollar company. So no, DoorDash did not prepare my food, but they are pushing a restaurant that has obvious health and safety concerns. So of course, first and foremost, it's the restaurant's issue. They have a pest problem. But if DoorDash keeps promoting this restaurant, this could happen to so many more people.
Just a couple of days ago, a man went on a killing spree, stabbing whoever was in his path. This senseless act of violence has left 4 people dead, including a young 15-year-old girl who was protecting her sister. On March 27, 2024, a 22-year-old man, Christian Soto, starts a series of attacks carried out around 1 p.m. in Rockford, Illinois. The attacks only spanned 20 minutes but left 7 injured and 4 deceased. It started in the home of Soto's friend, Jacob Schupbach, where they smoked, and then shortly after, Soto was seen chasing Schupbach across the lawn, attacking him multiple times with a black object while he laid on the ground. Then Soto got into his pickup truck, running Schupbach over before fleeing the scene. Miraculously, Schupbach was able to run back inside his home, but unfortunately, him and his mother were later found dead in their home. Soto carried on the attacks by driving down multiple streets and breaking into multiple homes. He encountered a postal worker, Jay Larson, on the clock, who he hit with his car and then stabbed multiple times. Unfortunately, Larson also died from his injuries. Right after this, Soto entered a woman's backyard who said he looked like the devil incarnate and was covered in blood. He stabbed her in the face before chasing her inside the house as she screamed for help. Her son saved her by wrestling and fighting with Soto until he gave up and left. Soto attacked another man on his way to the next location who was outside calling the police on him. He then enters the home where 3 young girls were watching a movie. He found a baseball bat in the home and attacked the girls in the basement. The girls ran to the corner of the bedroom where he started swinging and striking them. Jenna Newcomb, only 15, died while saving her sister and her friend from him. Afterwards, he tried attacking another woman in the front yard of her home, and a man who saw the attack as he was driving by intervened. Both are alive and being treated for their injuries in the hospital. Authorities were able to apprehend Soto during his spree when he was attacking and attempting to steal the Jeep of one of his victims. When they questioned Soto, he stated that he had smoked some herbs that he believed were laced at his friend's house. He told detectives that he started feeling extremely paranoid after smoking and then went on the rampage. He faces up to 60 years in prison on each count of first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder, and up to 30 years in prison for each home invasion. His lawyer asked to delay the hearing until April 2nd to speak to Soto and his family. Details are still unfolding.
Am I the asshole for telling my wife that pregnancy hormones aren't a blank check for verbal abuse? My wife is currently pregnant and about 6 months along. This is her first pregnancy and a planned and wanted pregnancy. The first trimester was great, but around the time we hit the second trimester, she became very aggressive. If I cook dinner, it's not just wrong, but it's, quote, Fucking disgusting. Get this away from me. If I clean the house and put things away, I get yelled at for putting things back because she now wanted them put somewhere different. I've been yelled at for waking up for work, for playing music she didn't like, for making coffee, and she didn't like the smell, and 100 others. It's gotten to the point where there is at least one explosion per day where I'm yelled at and insulted. I've tried to speak to her about this, but every time she hand waves it as, it's just the pregnancy hormones, it makes you crazy, you'll just have to deal with that. I am well aware of the effect that pregnancy hormones have, but I don't believe it justifies the level of verbal abuse coming my way. Finally, the other day I told her after a particular rough yelling session, I said that pregnancy hormones don't justify yelling or abuse to your partner. This wasn't received well. It led to more yelling and her calling me an asshole.